Hello and welcome to ANIM2004 Narrative Week Flows Week 4, and this week's topic is going to be about treatment. Basically, what the treatment is and how you can actually start making one. Treatment is used widely in film and within the film industry, whether you are a screenwriter, a filmmaker, animator. It really doesn't matter. It's a document that you need to create to present your ideas for a film before you actually get on with making the design of the film, before you start designing the film. That document is also really important because it has quite a lot of important information in it, like the synopsis, like the summary of the story, some sort of a character design, character development stuff in there, and really a lot to do with the grammar of what you want to do in terms of cinematography and the overall design and the feel of the film. It's also really important because you are actually really thinking hard about those issues before you spend a lot of your time and effort into making something that is going to be flawed or not correctly designed for. So as you'll see later on, there's a lot for you to kind of consider within your film. It also actually allows you to really summarize your idea for the film, to really see what the film is going to be about. More than that, it's also an important document if you ever want to get money, to get funding to make your film. I mean, this is what I've said to you guys before. It definitely is the key document by which you present to your producers, potential producers, or executive producers. In this particular instance, it is the key document that you actually need to present to me being the executive producer on the film. So it is something that needs to be really coherent and well thought through and developed. In short, you kind of need to start doing your research. Now, I know that you've already begun engaging with the research for this module, but really you're talking about how you settle the whole concept and idea in your head in terms of what the film is going to look like and how it's going to be made. You're going to be talking to different people, and that includes me. You are going to be really communicate what you really want to do and how you want to do it, and you really want to communicate how much you know about it through having done quite a bit of research into this. And that all should come through your design. Now, this information, as you can see, has been gleaned from a website called masterclass.com, and there are other important information there. So I advise you, if you really want to, you can have a look at that in order for you to get a better idea. While the masterclass.com really reflects on approaches of a screenwriter, a lot of the information there could also be sort of crafted to aid at writing an animation treatment as well. Okay, so the point of writing a film treatment really is to really finally give your film a structure, and that is a massive thing, because right at the beginning, this whole idea of making a film might be quite a vague notion. Some of you, most of you in the last year have gone through the process of pre-production work and kind of completed the whole package of that. But in reality, one film is going to look entirely different to the other. And here's a classic example of a filmmaker that works in an entirely different way from one of his films to the other, all do, but in this particular case, Peter Greenaway's films are glaringly obvious when you look at the treatment for one to the other. And as an example, if you have if you have the time and the notion to look at The Cook, the Thief, her lover, and his wife and her lover, and if you have another look at the same filmmaker, Peter Greenaway's film of Prospero's books, you'll see that the two films are entirely different. One film uses a pan to move from one side of the stage to the other, even from one room to the other, changing colors as it goes along, whereas Prospero's books, the camera is forever moving forward, not side to side, but always forward. So those are glaring, obvious differences in treatment of a film, and it's those sort of notions that you want to distill and develop in your films. So basically, what you're required to do is to really create a roadmap that makes the pre-production element of your film a lot easier. You need to look for the holes in your storyline, holes in your character development, all the other parts. If you write it, the moment you begin engaging with the act of writing a treatment, some of this stuff become glaringly obvious to you. And what you should include in your treatment is actually, there are just four areas that you need to really concentrate on when writing a treatment. One of which is the title. Even if the title is just a working title, in other words, you haven't really come up with the final title, your project needs to be called something, which could change later on. A synopsis, which is a short sentence summarizing what the film is going to be about, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. Then the story summary and the cinematography, in other words, what the story is about, and the cinematography, how you want to make it, the actual craft of making that story into a moving image, into a film and animation. So those are the four areas that you really kind of need to distinctly work on and include within your treatment. Now sometimes, and this is the reason I have got this the summary, story summary and cinematography together, because when you're writing about it, one interrelates with the other, and that's okay as long as you don't get bogged down by elements merging together. So as long as you're careful with that and kind of can summarize what your plot or your story, or for that matter your documentary is going to be about, then you can actually start at the same time writing about, well, you're going to be using this type of lighting, these sets of colors, to actually highlight elements within your film, to actually make it a lot more powerful a narrative. When you're dealing with synopsis, most students have a lot of difficulty kind of writing a synopsis. Traditionally in academics, synopsis could be a paragraph long. In this instance, we are talking about a short sentence, almost like a pitch, for want of a better word. And let's here have an example. We dealt with exactly this example last year. This is just a reminder. Supposing that you want to do a story about rabbits, it's no good saying that, well, this story is going to be about a bunch of rabbits. There has to be a little bit more, and here is an example of what I mean by that. A heist of a carrot canning factory by a crew of desperate rabbits. Now automatically that gives a huge change to what we were looking at before, which was a cute little rabbit. The moment you say the story is about a rabbit, it could be literally anything, but the moment you bring in the word heist, a robbery, and desperate rabbits, it just changes everything on its head and gives a clear idea of the product the producers are looking at, or anybody looking at the work knows exactly what the film is going to be about. Okay, so like I said, these two elements could easily be brought together, but if you were going to kind of break them apart and having a look at the story summary in a very short instance, the very first thing that you kind of need to consider is it going to have the 3 acts? Do you really need the 3 acts? Because if you're doing continuity editing, then therefore yes, you're looking at having the 3 acts, and then all the other stuff that we dealt with in terms of the beats of the story last year. We discussed this, we developed this last year. You had a clear idea of what this was going to, how this is going to be. I'm hoping, because all of you have passed the module, so therefore you know. So you know what continuity editing is as well. On the other hand, if it's not, and I know that there are 1 or 2 of you who are thinking about doing non-narrative stuff, and non-narrative, which is really weird because the whole module is called narrative workflows. Well, the non-narrative doesn't mean abstract. In reality, it could be documentary, because you are not really adhering to that 3-act principle that drives the narrative with the storyline. This is purely a research and documenting and reporting back on what the findings are. So it could be non-narrative, in which case continuous editing may not do at all. So therefore you're looking at a completely different type of a structure for your film. So summarizing the storyline may take a completely different approach in this instance. You will need to kind of turn things on its head. You would really need to kind of reach to the heart of the matter and discuss that within your treatment. Cinematography, regardless of what you do in terms of narrative or non-narrative based approaches, would mean that really the design of your film, the grammar, the language in which you're kind of developing your film as well, those are, you can't get away with regardless of what you're doing. So that kind of comes down to the type of shots that you're designing your film for, which equally means that you're looking at things like mise-en-scene, what goes within your shot, how you are arranging and setting the scene for those shots. In the same instance, therefore, you're talking about lights, you're talking about color, you're talking about characters, as well as costumes. All those elements need to be kind of carefully orchestrated and composed in order for you to kind of create a film. Therefore, discussing those and why you want to use them and how those things are going to actually help the design of your film, is going to help to make the film successful, is an integral and important element of a treatment, because it is part of what you need to kind of having thought and designed at the back of your mind. Now you're writing your thoughts down very carefully into a written format. The design and the grammar also has something else with the overall type of a film that you're dealing with. It's not just developing the characters, not just looking at the shots and how you design your shots, but also looks at the pace of the film, how your film is moving along, where are those really slow parts of the film and where are those really fast parts of the film where the narrative is really blitzing forward, and why and how. All those elements are quite important, again, regardless of whether you're doing narrative or non-narrative. Although I would say that if you're taking a much more experimental approach to it, those things kind of are developing and evolving as you go along, but you can discuss that notion within your treatment, that you are thinking about these issues and you feel that it could go this way, and therefore it actually allows you to have considered some of these elements before you literally start to make the film. So in short, once you've actually considered all these 4 elements, that is the time that you can actually sort of start to really have a considered and fully thought out notion of the film, and you've also have a document by which you're including others into your thought patterns as well. In this case, others is literally me, that you need to kind of convince me that this is a film well worthwhile making. Of course, the last part of what you want to also include in the film is also the whole idea of how you want to make it, how you see that film being made. Is it going to be 2D? Is it going to be 3D? Is it going to be stop motion? How you want to make it. The actual technique of it could then come forward, and you can just say, well, you see this film as being I don't know, made in Toon Boom, made in CG, stop motion, whatever it is. That's when you kind of decide, okay, this is how I'm going to make the film. So that's the treatment over and done with. One of the important elements of this module is engaging with tutorials, which hasn't really happened, or if it has been in a very haphazard manner, with me kind of spending a couple of minutes talking to you guys about your films. Well, that is going to be over and done with, and from this point onwards, this element of the class is going to take more of a back seat. We may be looking at films, we may be discussing films, but in reality, the whole thing I'm going to pass over to you as individuals, that you need to do the work, you need to kind of come in, and you need to arrange for tutorials to talk to me. Most of those tutorials I prefer to do online, simply because currently it's so difficult to sit next to each other and have a really kind of a in-depth discussion over a computer where I'm looking over your work. So therefore it is important for you to update and manage to keep up to date your blogs with your ideas and your developments, so that we can literally have a decent conversation online over these things. Now, in order for me to do that for you, I've actually created an area where you actually do need to go in and write down your name in order to get yourself a slide for your tutorial, and we'll be looking at that in just a moment. Okay, so within Blackboard, under the learning resources page, what you're going to have is the very first item that you'll see is a tutorial link there. Now it quite clearly goes on to say that there are only certain number of slots per week. I think there are 8 slots per week. There are 16 of you in the class, and so therefore it's likely that I'll be seeing you every other week, which is actually not a bad pace in terms of setting a pace for you guys to meet with me online. The notion here is that you'll be working away, getting stuff ready, and we'll be meeting at least, hopefully at least once every fortnight, to discuss your film, to discuss how far you've got, to discuss anything that's bothering you, and also to report back to me, who is going to be your executive producer on the film, about where you got to with it for your film. So that's the whole idea about it. I've also included 2 more slots, which I've called emergency slots. Now most of the tutorials are going to be in fact all the tutorials are going to be in the morning, and the rest are the emergency ones are going to be in the afternoon. 2 slots of emergency slots, and I mean emergency, and that would be because you haven't seen me for a few weeks, all the slots are filled, so therefore you would want to meet, and you're kind of desperate to meet, or something is drastically gone wrong and the slots for that week is filled and you want to have a discussion with me over something. Or it could be that you all of a sudden find that you can't meet me the following week because something is cropped up, but you want to kind of have that discussion with me, so you book an emergency slot for that particular week, so you can get the meeting out of the way, and because you need to go to do something else following week when you clearly can't be in two places at the same time. So that's the idea, and that is by clicking on this link here, it should take you directly to the slots themselves. Now you notice that I've got 2 weeks added here. One is for the 13th, which is week 4, and one is for the 20th, which is week 5. So those of you, first come first serve, you can fill in your names, but please do not, this is what I don't want to happen, for somebody to put their name on both slots, because I will literally take your name off it. So unless there are spare slots available, and that doesn't include the emergency slots, unless there are slots available, then in which case you can have your name. So you need to wait and make sure that people have actually done filling have had an opportunity, everyone's had an opportunity to have their name put in, and if there's a spare slot available, then by all means you can put your name down, but don't be a hog. Allow others to have an opportunity to put stuff in. I also know that there are at least one group of you that are going to be working together, so there's no reason for you to have that tutorial as one-to-one. Anybody within a group can come in and discuss the matter in a group with me, rather than having to come one at a time, unless that particular person would like to have the one-to-one for whatever the reason is. So that's the notion behind it. Again, one more time, emergency slots are for emergencies. There has to be a good reason for that. I'm trying to get you to kind of adhere to life in general. You just need to make sure that that you take your share of it, and you have to get there on time, you have to book your time, and you have to realize that not everything is going to be available to you all the time either. This is the professional way to go about it. So this is, and every 2 weeks, so once we get to that date, you'll have another sheet for the following 2 weeks where you can then add your names to it. So this is the process that we're going to be engaging with from this point onwards. I hope this has been quite clear for you. I hope that you kind of are going to engage with this. I hope that to be seeing you and talking to you about your treatments, because that's a really, really important document. And this is the point when you actually write your treatment, whether it's your first draft or your last draft or what have you, is where we can actually have a decent in-depth discussion about your film. Up to now, it's been, well, what you're doing, oh, this idea, oh, that sounds quite interesting, why don't you go ahead and do it? But at this stage, this is where you're going to be really kind of looking to pin the film down. Now, that also includes a lot of research on your part. You actually need to be looking at a huge, diverse range of films and animation to kind of and really look at the grammar and approach and how people have made their films. So be mindful of that as well. I expect to see that. I expect you to come to the tutorials with a real notion of your approach, and it's no good then to sort of say, well, I watched this film, I want to make something like that. It doesn't quite work like that. You need to come to these meetings with blinkers off and sort of having glanced around you to see the richness of material and films that are out there for you to kind of think about making a film yourself.